Alright, which questions did y'all want to go over from yesterday? Number 3? Okay, well, the main problem with number 3 was it was a typo. There should have been a 3 there from the beginning. But I told y'all to put that. So the first thing you should have done, please stop talking. The first thing you should have done was move the 10 to the other side. The 10 is touching the cube root, which means it's being multiplied. So the inverse operation of multiplication is division. Okay, those now cancel out, and on the left side of the equation, you're left with the cube root of x plus 4, and on the right side, you now have 5. Now, everything on this side is trapped up under the cube root. So we need to get rid of the cube root, and how do we do that? Cube it. Which means you also have to cube this side. Those cancel each other out because they're inverse operations, leaving just x plus 4. And what is 5 cubed? 125, and then the remaining step to isolate x is, right, and so x equals 121. Right, and then you would plug it in. 121 plus 4 is 125. The cube root of 125 is 5, and then 5 times 10 equals 50, so it works. 6. Just in case people watching want to see the video or see the homework gone over. Okay, number 6. What should I do first? Correct. That 5 is not trapped up under, so we're going to add it over. So now I have the cube root of 2 minus 3x equals 5. Now what do I need to do? Right. Everything else is trapped up under, so I need to get rid of it by cubing it. So now those cancel each other out, and I have 2 minus 3x equals 125. Right, and I think this is where a lot of people get confused because they see this minus sign and they automatically think because there's a minus there that they need to add the 2. But the minus belongs to the 3. 2 doesn't have a sign in front, so it's positive. Now, somebody asked me yesterday if they could do this, and you can if it will help. If you want to, you can quickly rearrange that and put the negative 3x in the front and the positive 2 at the end. And then for some of you, it becomes more clear what to do when you see it like that. Okay, you don't have to do that. But for some of you, if you just flip-flop these terms, but make sure the negative stays on the 3 and then 2 is positive, then it's pretty obvious that you subtract 2. And then we have negative 3x equals 123. And then what do we do to both sides? Divide by negative 3, and x equals negative 41. Okay, any other questions on the front? Okay, let's go to the back. Which ones would you like to go over on the back? 10 and 14? Turn around and pay attention, please. P minus 4 equals the square root of 7p minus 38. Okay, so what do I need to do first? No, this is a square root. So I would need to square this side to cancel it out, and that means I would have to square this side. But since there's 2 terms over here, you put it in parentheses. So doesn't p minus 4 squared literally mean p minus 4 times p minus 4? And then on this side, the square root was canceled out when we squared it, so we have 7p minus 38. Now what do we do on this side? Right, FOIL, or some people just call it distribute. P times p is p squared. P times negative 4 is negative 4p. Then you have to distribute this negative 4 to both terms. Negative 4 times p is negative 4p, and negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Now that I have done that, what can I do next? Combine like terms. Okay, and on the left side, what terms can be combined? Correct, those 2, right? And what will that become? P squared minus 8p plus 16 equals 7p minus 38. Now that this side is simplified, now what can we do? Correct. And add 38, because we want to move everything to this side. So if I subtract 7p over here, it cancels out, and then I subtract it from the p to the first over there. If I add 38, it cancels out, and then I add it to the 16 over here. So now what does my trinomial become? Plus 54, and then equals 0. Okay, now what can I do with that? Or if you're not good at factoring, what else can you do? You can graph it and see where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, what numbers multiply to 54 and add to negative 15? Negative 9, negative 6. So that would make your final answers, which is where it would also cross the graph. If you would have graphed this, it would have crossed at 9 and 6. Now, that pretty much rules out A and D. But then you have a 9, and then you have a 9 and 6. So what do we need to do? Plug them in, because that 6 might be extraneous. You can't just assume C is right. It might be B. So instead of plugging in 9, because we kind of already know it's going to work, let's just plug in 6. If I plug in a 6 on this side, what's 6 minus 4? 2. If I plug in a 6 over here, what's 6 times 7? And what's 42 minus 38? And what's the square root of 4? 2. So 6 works. So doesn't that mean that this has to be the right answer? Now, I know this is not easy. Okay, this is probably the hardest thing on this test. However, with multiple choice, don't you understand how you can literally just go one choice at a time, plugging in the numbers to see if they make a true statement? You don't even have to do any of this if you don't know how. With multiple choice, all you have to do is know how to plug it in. Okay, so let me show you that really quickly. Let's say that you didn't know how to do anything I just did. We'll start with A. I just plugged in 6, and we saw that it worked. Now let's plug in 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. On this side, if I plug in 4, what's 7 times 4? And what's 28 minus 38? Can you square root a negative number? No, so that's not going to work. And so obviously if that didn't work there, it's not going to work there. And then you would just need to plug in 6 to see if it worked, and that would let you know it's C. So does everybody see how even though this is a difficult problem, with multiple choice it's really simple? Okay, somebody requested number 14, 15. What do you mean, like a number out here? No, I don't think so. No. They're not going to get that hard on this test. Yes, you can still plug them in. Okay, number 15. Yep. Okay, so first I'm going to just cover up the solutions and do it the way I taught you, and then we'll do it by plugging in. So, number 15, what should I do first? Square it to get rid of the square root. But remember, on this side, you have two terms, so you have to square the entire thing. So b minus 6 squared, doesn't that literally mean b minus 6 times b minus 6? And on this side, the square root and the squared cancel each other out, leaving just the 4b minus 27. So now what will I do? FOIL, or just distribute. B times b is b squared. B times negative 6 is negative 6b. Negative 6 times b is negative 6b. And negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. Okay, now what will I do? Combine like terms. On this side only at first. And that becomes what? Okay, now what will I do? Correct. Bring everything on this side over here. So if I subtract 4b over here, I have to subtract it right there. And then I would add 27 to cancel it. And so I would add it over here. And so now my new trinomial is plus what? 63. Now that I have a trinomial set equal to 0, what can I do? Find my factors or just graph it, and it'll take me straight to my final answers. What are the factors that add to negative 16 multiply to 63? Correct. And so that means it would have crossed the x-axis in what two places? 9 and 7. Okay, so 9 and 7. So now let's look at the choices. Okay, it has to be what? Well, actually, I see extraneous solution 9, but then I see 7, 9. Well, not really though, because 7, it would have to say extraneous solution of 9 and then have another one that was just 7. You see what I mean? But we'll plug in 9 just to rule out B. If I plug in 9 right here, what's 9 minus 6? 3. If I plug in 9 over here, what's 4 times 9? 36. And what's 36 minus 27? And isn't the square root of 9 3? So 9 works. Therefore, it's not extraneous. And so it has to be D. Okay, so like if you had been working this one just by choices and you plugged in A first, you would have plugged in that 9 and saw that it worked, which would have ruled out B and C, so you would have pretty much known it had to be D. So does everybody understand how to take your choices and plug them in? Because that will make this test so much easier for those of you who are struggling with all of the algebra. Okay, now let's go to today's work, so the last 2 pages of the packet. Today we're doing word problems. Okay, first problem. At an amusement park, a ride is in a cylindrical room that spins around. So I'm sure some of you have ridden something like this before. Cylindrical means like shaped like a can. Okay, and you get up against the wall and it spins you. So that's what we're talking about here. The model that gives the speed, S, okay, so you need to underline important information. Speed is represented by the variable S. And it's necessary to keep a person pinned to the wall of the ride as it's spinning is listed below, where R is radius of the rotor. And then, honestly, even though this is a word problem, pay attention. It's not going to be hard, Kiara, because they give you your equation. Put it on the wall. Okay, so even though it's a word problem, they give you an equation. Write the radius of the rotor, or find the radius of the rotor that spins at a speed of 8 meters per second. So where do we use that 8? The S, because look, speed is 8 meters per second, and isn't speed represented by the letter S? So won't we just replace the S with an 8? Okay, so 8 equals 4.95 square root R. To solve, what do we do first? Correct. Divide by 4.95. Everybody understands why we're dividing, right? And so what is 8 divided by 4.95? Okay, so we'll just round it to 1.62. And then that equals the square root of R. So now the final step to isolate the R is square it, to get rid of the square root. And you have to square this side. And so R equals whatever 1.62 squared is. 2.6. And remember, R is for radius, and that's 2.6 what? Meters, because the speed was in meters per second. Okay, now let's talk about the domain. When you hear the word domain, you automatically think of what? The x-axis, right? Or x value. Well, in this equation, we didn't have x and y, we had s and r. Which one is the x? The r. Think about it. Wouldn't that be y equals? So, r is going to be for domain. And if you're square rooting a number, and think about it, we're talking about a radius, what does it have to be? Like numerically, like you can only square root what kind of number? Positive. You can't take the square root of a negative number, correct? And you also can't have a negative radius of something. So your R, your radius, has to be greater than 0. Now, technically, even 0 could go up under here, right? Because the square root of 0 is 0. But if your radius is only 0 and not bigger, is there going to be any room to step into? No. So it has to be bigger than 0. Does that make sense? Okay, let's try the next one. Biologists have discovered that the shoulder height h, okay, so height is represented by the letter h, of a male elephant can be modeled by the equation below, where t is the age of the elephant. Okay, so they give you the equation. That's why, even though it's a word problem, it shouldn't be hard, because it's not like you have to set it up. Estimate the age, so they're wanting you to find the t value of an elephant whose shoulder height is 200 centimeters. So they give you the h value. So doesn't that mean we just replace h with 200? Okay? So 200 equals 62.5 times the cube root of t plus 75.8. Okay, so all I've done so far was rewritten the equation they gave me, but I had to understand that they gave me the height of 200, so 200 goes in the h place. Now I just solve it. To solve it, what would I do first? Right, before dividing. Remember, when you're doing equations, you do PEMDAS backwards. First we subtract. And so what is 200 minus 75.8? Right, 124.2. And so now that equals 62.5 times the cube root of t, and then that's canceled out. Now what would I do? Now I would divide by the 62.5 to cancel it out. Let's just round it to the tenths place, that way we all get the same answer. What's 124.2 divided by 62.5? What? 1.8? I know, I didn't round all my answers to the tenth, so I'm just checking them real quick. 124.2 divided by 62.5, 1.98. So where would we round that if we're rounding it to the tenths place? 2. Okay, so 2 equals, hold on. 2 equals the cube root of t, and so now to solve for t, what would we do? Cube it. And then we cube this side, and so those cancel out, so t, which represents the age of the elephant, is 8 years. Okay, now I want you to try B by yourself. Okay, B, here we go. I'm going to go fast since you already did it. I'm waiting on y'all to be quiet. This time the height is 450, so we would replace the h with 450, and it would be 450 equals 62.5 times the cube root of t plus 75.8. Just like we did before, you would subtract 75.8 from both sides. That would make this become 374.2. Then you would have to divide by 62.5 on both sides. And let me redo it because I don't know that I rounded to the tenths. 374.2 divided by 62.5 is 5.98, so we'll just go and round it up to 6. Equals the cube root of t. And now cancel it out by cubing it. And so t equals 6 cubed, which is 216 years, but like I said, elephants don't live that long.
You never know.
Can y'all please be quiet while I'm teaching? Okay, here we go. Next problem. In a drag race, the speed of a car at the end of a race is a function of the car's power. For a total weight of 3,500 pounds, the speed S can be modeled by the equation S equals 14.8 times the cube root of P, where P is power, and that's in horsepower. Use the formula to determine the power of a car that reaches a speed of 100 miles per hour. So where will that 100 get plugged in? In the S. So 100 equals 14.8 times the cube root of P. So what will you do first to solve it? Correct. And so what is 100 divided by 14.8? 6.8 if you round it to the tenths place. And now to solve for P, what's the last step? Cube it to cancel out that cube root. And then you would cube 6.8. And what is 6.8 cubed? 314.4. Well, we're rounding to the tenths every time. 314.4, and that's horsepower. Okay, turn to the next page. So, the fetch F, which is represented in nautical miles, is the distance of the wind on the ocean that is required to fully develop a storm, and it can be modeled by the equation S equals 3.1 times the cube root of F plus 10 plus 11.1, where S is the speed of the wind. In part A, they want you to determine the fetch required to fully develop a storm if the wind speed is 25 knots. So where will we plug in 25? In the S place for speed. So 25 equals times the cube root of correct.
We're going to subtract 11.1.
Right. Okay, what is 25 minus 11.1? 13.9. Yep. Now what will we do next? Divide by 3.1. 13.9 divided by 3.1 is 4.5. And then that equals the cube root of F plus 10. Now I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides.
No, it's under the radical.
Oh, it's just testing you.
Okay?
Okay? So now I have to cube it because the 10 is trapped. And then I cube this side. What is 4.5 cubed? So 91.1 if we're just rounding everything to the tenths power. And now only F plus 10 is left. So now what do I do?
Subtract 10.
Now I can subtract that 10. And so the answer is F equals 81.1. And F is nautical miles. Oh yeah, domain. Okay, domain. Look up under the square root. Remember, you can, or cube root. Not when you were talking about nautical miles, can you have a negative amount of nautical miles? No, because nautical miles is like distance, and you can't have negative distance. So don't we have to have something 0 or bigger up under this? What could you plug in F and this still be 0 or bigger? What could I plug in for F, add 10 to it, and still have 0? Negative 10. So your F can be greater than or equal to negative 10. Because if you plug in negative 10 or larger and add 10 to it, you're going to end up with 0 or bigger, right? But you're not going to actually get a negative because you got to add 10 to it before doing the roots. Yes, go ahead and try number 5. I mean, I'll just write it. Shh, I turned the video back on already.
Oh, yup. Wait, what? Yeah, I got 294.74.
Y'all ain't get around it.
Oh, I didn't write it. Does it get calculated?
It don't matter. She said it's a
On the
ballpark.
test, it's going to probably be multiple choice, so.
It's plus or minus 2.
Or you could have just rounded this up to 34.
30.
Yeah, I ended up with 33.95, so 34.
What are you talking about, Miss J?
Hold on. I got 230.
I got 233. Me too.
Did y'all square it?
You did it wrong.
You did it wrong.
I did
Let
that.
me
I
look.
got
Okay, really quickly, what would the domain be? What letter is the domain? S, and it would have to be what? Greater than or equal to negative 4.45. Because if you added 4.5 to it, it'd bring it back to 0. And you have to have 0 or bigger under the root. Tomorrow we'll finish the last one before we start the test review. You can switch out.